Friends, in today's fascinating and informative video, we are going to talk about a coin that collectors around the world love to search for. This is the USA Abraham Lincoln 1-cent penny, a historic coin that once had a value of only 1 cent, but today its story, history, and rare conditions can make it worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. In this video, we will explore the surprising history of this coin, its hidden secrets, how to identify it, and many interesting facts that most people don't even know about. If you enjoy old coins or want to discover how a simple-looking coin can turn into a valuable treasure, make sure to watch this video until the end, because ahead you will learn some amazing secrets that you may have never heard before. Let's get started. First up in the story of the 1964 D. Lincoln Memorial cent begins during one of the most dynamic periods in American history. Minted in 1964 at the famous Denver Mint, this small copper coin represents far more than just 1 cent of purchasing power. It carries forward the long-standing tribute to Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, whose legacy of unity and leadership continues to influence American culture. The Lincoln cent design had already been in circulation for decades by 1964, but every new minting year adds another chapter to its remarkable numismatic story. During the early 1960s, the United States was experiencing social transformation, technological progress, and global political tension, and coins like the 1964 D penny quietly circulated through millions of hands, witnessing everyday American life in a time of change. The obverse side of the 1964 D. Lincoln cent features the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design originally created by renowned sculptor Victor David Brenner in 1909. Brenner's portrait was revolutionary at the time because it was the first U.S. circulating coin to display a real historical figure rather than a symbolic representation of liberty. On the coin's front, Lincoln's thoughtful profile faces right, with the word liberty appearing to the left and the date 1964 along with the small D mint mark placed to the right. Above Lincoln's head appears the national motto, "In God We Trust." This design, though simple, carries deep symbolism. It reminds Americans of Lincoln's leadership during the American Civil War, when he guided the nation through one of its darkest and most defining periods. Turning the coin over reveals the famous Lincoln Memorial reverse, a design introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The reverse shows the detailed structure of the Lincoln Memorial, located in Washington, D.C., where a statue of Lincoln sits within the monument's grand columns. What makes this design especially fascinating is that, under magnification, collectors can actually see the tiny seated figure of Lincoln inside the memorial building on the coin. This makes the Lincoln Memorial cent one of the few coins in the world to feature the same person on both sides of the design. The inscriptions United States of America, 1 cent, and the motto, E pluribus unum, complete the reverse, giving the coin its unmistakable appearance. The 1964 D. Lincoln penny was produced during a time when the United States Mint was facing an increasing demand for coins. The American economy was expanding rapidly, and the public needed more small-denomination coins for everyday transactions. As a result, the United States Mint authorized massive production runs. The Denver Mint alone struck more than 3 billion Lincoln cents in 1964, making the 1964 D one of the most widely produced pennies of the era. Even though the mintage numbers were enormous, the historical environment surrounding this coin adds significant interest for collectors. It represents the final years before major changes in American coinage composition and minting practices would occur later in the decade. Another fascinating aspect of the 1964 D. Lincoln cent is its metal composition. Unlike modern pennies, which are primarily made of zinc, this coin was struck from a traditional bronze alloy consisting of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This composition gives the coin its warm reddish-brown color and slightly heavier feel compared with later pennies. Because copper prices have fluctuated over the decades, many collectors view these older bronze cents as miniature pieces of American industrial history. The copper used in these coins once came from American mines that fueled the nation's economic development during the 20th century. For collectors and numismatists, condition plays a critical role in determining the value of a 1964 D. Lincoln penny. While circulated examples are extremely common and usually worth only a small premium above face value, Coins found in pristine uncirculated condition can be significantly more desirable. Sharp details on Lincoln's hair, clear lettering, and a strong mint luster are all qualities that collectors look for. Coins graded by professional services, such as Professional Coin Grading Service or Numismatic Guarantee Company, may command higher prices, especially if they achieve top grades like MS 66 or higher. Interestingly, the 1964 D. Lincoln cent also attracts attention because of minor minting varieties and subtle errors that occurred during production. Some collectors search for examples with repunched mint marks, die cracks, or slight doubling in the lettering. While these varieties are not extremely rare, they add an element of treasure hunting to coin collecting. Enthusiasts often examine rolls of old pennies hoping to discover one of these unusual mint errors, turning an ordinary coin into a fascinating collectible with its own unique story. Beyond its collector value, the 1964 D. Lincoln penny also represents a cultural symbol of everyday American life. During the 1960s, a single penny still had meaningful purchasing power. Children saved them in piggy banks, stores used them to price goods precisely, and millions of these coins circulated through markets, buses, vending machines, and cash registers across the country. Each coin became a silent witness to daily commerce and personal stories, connecting ordinary citizens to the broader economic system of the United States. Today, decades later, the 1964 D. Lincoln Memorial Cent remains a beloved piece among collectors and history enthusiasts. It may appear to be a small and humble coin, but it carries within it the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, the artistry of Victor David Brenner, and the craftsmanship of the United States Mint. For many numismatists, finding a well-preserved 1964 D. penny is like holding a small piece of American history in the palm of their hand, a reminder that even the smallest coins can tell powerful stories about a nation's past. Another fascinating aspect of the 1964 D. Lincoln Memorial Cent is the historical environment in which it circulated during the mid-1960s in the United States. The year 1964 was marked by enormous national transformation, from political changes to social reform movements that shaped modern American society. At the same time, these pennies were passing from hand to hand in grocery stores, newsstands, and bus stations. The country was witnessing events such as the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, one of the most significant pieces of legislation in American history. While the coin itself was simple and inexpensive, it quietly existed alongside these powerful moments of change, making it a small but authentic artifact from an era when the United States was redefining equality, opportunity, and national identity. The production of the 1964 D. penny at the historic Denver Mint also highlights the immense scale of American coin manufacturing during that period. The Denver facility had been operating since 1906 and became one of the most productive minting centers in the country. In 1964, the demand for coins skyrocketed due to rapid economic expansion and population growth. To meet this demand, the United States Mint operated its presses around the clock, striking billions of Lincoln cents. The small D mint mark on the coin identifies it as a product of Denver's minting machines, connecting the coin directly to the western region of the United States, where vast industrial resources and skilled workers supported the nation's currency production. Collectors often find the artistic design of the coin especially meaningful because it continues the tradition of honoring Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected leaders in American history. Lincoln's presence on the cent symbolizes the ideals of unity, perseverance, and democracy that he defended during the American Civil War. The portrait created by Victor David Brenner captures Lincoln with a thoughtful and calm expression, giving the coin a sense of dignity rarely seen in small-denomination currency. Over time, this portrait became one of the most recognizable images in American numismatics, and by 1964 it had already been familiar to generations of Americans who had grown up using Lincoln cents in their everyday lives. From a collector's perspective, another intriguing element of the 1964 D. Lincoln cent is how its value can dramatically change depending on preservation and color classification. Next up in the 1963 D. Lincoln Memorial Penny is one of the most fascinating small coins ever produced in the United States, not because it is made of precious metal, but because it quietly carries a powerful piece of American history in its copper surface. Minted in 1963 at the famous United States Mint facility in Denver, this coin was created during a dramatic year in American history. The early 1960s were a time of change, political tension, and social transformation in the United States. While millions of these pennies circulated through everyday life, buying newspapers, candy, or bus rides, they also became silent witnesses to a country experiencing one of its most memorable decades. The 1963 D penny reflects a moment when American coinage still carried a classic copper composition, and when the nation was approaching the historic transition that would soon change coin designs and metal content forever. At the center of the coin's design is the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, whose face has appeared on the penny since 1909. The original design was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, who carefully crafted Lincoln's dignified profile to symbolize leadership, unity, and resilience. On the 1963 D penny, Lincoln's portrait faces right, with the word liberty placed behind him and the year, 1963, displayed in front. Above his head appears the famous motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase that became especially meaningful during the Cold War era when American identity and national values were strongly emphasized. This elegant yet simple design helped transform the penny into one of the most recognizable coins in the world. The reverse side of the coin features the Lincoln Memorial, the famous monument located in Washington, D.C., introduced in 1959 to commemorate Lincoln's 150th birthday. The Lincoln Memorial reverse replaced the earlier wheat-ear design that had appeared on pennies for 50 years. The memorial is depicted with remarkable detail, and if you look closely at well-preserved coins, you can even see the tiny statue of Abraham Lincoln seated inside the building. Above the memorial appears the phrase United States of America, while below it reads 1 cent. The phrase E pluribus unum arches above the monument, reinforcing the American ideal of unity among the states. What makes the 1963 D penny particularly interesting to collectors is the small D mint mark located beneath the year. This letter indicates that the coin was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the most important coin-producing facilities in the United States. During 1963, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of pennies to meet the growing demand for small change in the expanding American economy. Although the coin was produced in very large numbers, collectors carefully study variations in strike quality, color, and preservation. Even small details, such as the sharpness of Lincoln's hair or the clarity of the memorial columns, can significantly influence a coin's desirability and market value. The metal composition of the 1963 D Lincoln penny also adds to its historical charm. Like most pennies minted before 1982, it was made primarily of copper, about 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This composition gives the coin its warm reddish color when freshly minted, known among collectors as red. Over time, exposure to air and circulation causes the copper to darken, creating shades known as red-brown or brown. These color variations are extremely important in coin grading, and pristine red examples from 1963 D can command much higher prices than darker circulated coins. Although the majority of 1963 D pennies are common in everyday circulated condition, rare high-grade specimens can still surprise collectors. Coins that have been preserved without scratches, wear, or discoloration, especially those graded at the highest levels by professional grading services, can be worth many times their face value. Collectors particularly search for coins with full original luster, strong details, and minimal contact marks. Because the penny was widely used in commerce during the 1960s, finding an example in near-perfect condition today is far more difficult than many people realize. Another fascinating aspect of the 1963 D penny is its connection to the dramatic events of the year 1963 itself. That year witnessed major milestones in the American civil rights movement, including the historic March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, where Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech near the Lincoln Memorial, the same monument depicted on the coin's reverse. This symbolic connection between the coin's design and the real-world events happening around the memorial gives the 1963 penny a deeper historical meaning. In many ways, the coin represents not only economic exchange, but also the enduring legacy of Lincoln's ideals of equality and unity. For collectors, the 1963 D Lincoln penny is often a starting point for building a full Lincoln Memorial penny collection. Because it is relatively affordable, beginners can easily obtain one, yet advanced collectors still seek exceptional examples with perfect surfaces and brilliant color. The coin also appears frequently in coin rolls, old piggy banks, and inherited collections, making it a familiar discovery for hobbyists. Many collectors remember the excitement of finding a bright copper penny from the early 1960s and realizing they were holding a small piece of American history. Ultimately, the 1963 D. Lincoln penny demonstrates how even the smallest coin can carry an extraordinary story. From the portrait of Abraham Lincoln to the detailed image of the Lincoln Memorial, the coin symbolizes leadership, national unity, and historical memory. Though worth only 1 cent in everyday transactions, its true value lies in the history it represents and the fascination it inspires among collectors around the world. For anyone exploring the world of numismatics, the 1963 D penny remains a timeless reminder that history often hides in the smallest and most ordinary objects we encounter. The 1963 D. Lincoln Memorial penny also holds an important place in the long evolution of the American penny. Since its introduction in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, the Lincoln cent had already become the longest-running coin design in United States history by the time 1963 arrived. The early 1960s were a period when American coinage was still firmly rooted in tradition, yet major changes were approaching. Just 2 years later, the United States would remove silver from many circulating coins due to rising metal prices. While the penny itself remained copper-based, the 1963 issue represents one of the final moments before the broader transformation of U.S. coinage in the mid-1960s, making it a symbolic link between classic American coinage and the modern era. Another fascinating detail about the coin involves the incredible production scale of the Denver Mint, where the 1963 D pennies were struck. During the early 1960s, the United States economy was expanding rapidly, and the demand for small change grew with it. Vending machines, public transportation systems, and everyday retail transactions required enormous quantities of pennies. As a result, the Denver Mint operated at an intense pace, producing hundreds of millions of coins throughout the year. Each coin began as a blank copper disc called a planchet, which was then stamped with tremendous pressure to imprint the detailed design. Despite the speed of production, the Mint still maintained impressive quality standards, allowing many coins to survive today with sharp and attractive details. The reverse design featuring the Lincoln Memorial also carries a deeper symbolic meaning beyond its architectural beauty. The memorial itself is one of the most iconic landmarks in the United States, built to honor Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War and his role in preserving the nation. By placing the monument on the penny, the United States Mint effectively turned everyday pocket change into a miniature national monument. Every time someone used a penny in a store or dropped one into a coin jar, they were unknowingly carrying a tiny tribute to Lincoln's legacy and the ideals of unity and freedom that he represented. Collectors also pay close attention to subtle varieties and strike characteristics found on 1963 D pennies. Because millions of coins were struck using steel dies, those dies gradually wore down over time. When a die became worn or damaged, it could produce coins with slight imperfections such as weak lettering, doubled details, or small die cracks. While many of these variations are minor, some have become interesting collectible features. Numismatists carefully examine coins under magnification to identify. Next up to in the 1972 D. Lincoln Memorial cent begins during a fascinating period in American history when the United States was experiencing cultural change, technological growth, and economic challenges. Minted at the United States Mint in Denver, this coin carries the small but important D Mint mark just beneath the date, indicating its place of origin. While it may appear to be an ordinary copper coin used in everyday transactions, the 1972 D penny actually represents an era when billions of coins circulated through the American economy each year. These coins jingled in pockets, rolled through vending machines, and changed hands countless times in grocery stores and gas stations. For collectors today, the 1972 D. Lincoln cent is more than spare change. It is a physical artifact that captures the spirit of early 1970s America and preserves the legacy of one of the nation's most admired leaders, President Abraham Lincoln. On the obverse side of the coin appears the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design originally created by sculptor Victor David Brenner. Introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, this portrait became the longest-running design in United States coinage history. By the time the 1972 D penny was struck, The Lincoln cent had already been circulating for more than 6 decades. The design shows Lincoln in profile facing right, conveying dignity, strength, and reflection. Surrounding the portrait are the inscriptions "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year 1972, while the mint mark D rests just below the date. Each detail on the coin was carefully crafted to maintain the traditional look that Americans had grown familiar with, ensuring continuity while still producing millions of coins for daily commerce. Turning the coin over reveals the classic Lincoln Memorial reverse, designed by engraver Frank Gasparo. This reverse design was introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth and replaced the earlier wheat ear design that had appeared on pennies since 1909. The Lincoln Memorial is depicted with remarkable architectural detail, and if one looks very closely at well-preserved examples, the tiny statue of Abraham Lincoln can even be seen seated inside the memorial between the columns. Around the top of the reverse reads, "United States of America," while the denomination, 1 cent, appears prominently below the monument. This design symbolized national unity and remembrance, honoring Lincoln's role in preserving the nation during the American Civil War. The 1972 D penny was struck during a time when the United States Mint was producing enormous quantities of coins to keep up with economic demand. In fact, the Denver Mint alone produced more than 2.6 billion pennies in 1972, making the 1972 D Lincoln Memorial cent one of the most widely circulated Lincoln cents of its era. These coins were composed primarily of copper, containing about 95% copper and a small amount of zinc, giving them their warm reddish color when freshly minted. Over time, however, many examples darkened to a deep brown due to oxidation and decades of circulation. Although billions were produced, surviving coins in pristine, uncirculated condition are far less common, which is why collectors carefully search through old coin jars, bank rolls, and inherited collections hoping to discover a beautifully preserved example. What makes the 1972 penny especially interesting is that the Philadelphia version of the coin is famous for its dramatic double die error, one of the most recognizable minting mistakes in American coin collecting. While the 1972 double die Lincoln cent was struck in Philadelphia and does not carry a mint mark, its popularity sparked enormous interest in all 1972 Lincoln cents, including those from Denver. Collectors examining a 1972 D penny often check carefully for unusual doubling, die cracks, or other minor minting varieties that could make the coin more desirable. Even though the major double die error does not appear on the Denver coins, subtle variations still exist, making the hunt for unique pieces exciting for numismatists and hobbyists alike. From a collector's standpoint, the value of the 1972 D Lincoln Memorial cent depends largely on its condition. Most circulated examples are worth only a few cents above face value, but coins graded in high mint state condition can command significantly higher prices in the collector market. Professional grading services such as Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Company evaluate these coins using a detailed scale that measures surface quality, luster, and the presence of marks or scratches. A perfectly preserved red example with blazing mint luster can sometimes sell for hundreds of dollars, especially if it displays sharp details and minimal contact marks from the minting process. Another fascinating aspect of the 1972 D penny is the journey many of these coins have taken over the decades. Countless examples have traveled across the United States through everyday purchases, buying newspapers, candy bars, bus tickets, or even helping children learn the basics of saving money. Each coin may have passed through hundreds or even thousands of hands, quietly witnessing small moments of American life. By the time collectors encounter these coins decades later, they carry subtle signs of wear that tell a silent story of circulation. This sense of history gives the coin emotional value beyond its monetary worth, reminding collectors that even the smallest denomination can represent an entire era. In modern coin collecting, interest in Lincoln cents remains incredibly strong because of their accessibility and historical importance. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln has appeared on the U.S. penny for more than a century, making it one of the most recognizable coins in the world. The 1972 D Lincoln Memorial cent fits perfectly into this long tradition, representing the continuation of a design that generations of Americans grew up seeing every day. Collectors often assemble complete date and mint mark sets of Lincoln cents, and the 1972 D is an essential piece within that series, helping tell the story of how U.S. coinage evolved through different decades. Ultimately, the 1972 D. Lincoln penny stands as a humble yet powerful reminder that history often survives in the smallest objects. Though it was produced in enormous numbers and spent decades circulating through everyday life, it now attracts attention from historians, collectors, and treasure hunters alike. Whether discovered in an old coin jar, inherited from a family collection, or carefully preserved in a collector's album, the 1972 D. Lincoln Memorial Cent continues to capture the imagination of those who appreciate the stories hidden within ordinary coins. In its copper surface lies a blend of art, history, and national identity, proof that even a simple 1-cent piece can carry a remarkable legacy through time. Another fascinating aspect of the 1972 D. Lincoln Memorial Cent is the way its production reflects the industrial strength of the American minting system during the early 1970s. At the United States Mint facility in Denver, massive coining presses worked continuously to strike millions of pennies every day. Sheets of copper alloy were first rolled to the correct thickness, then punched into blank discs known as planchets. These planchets were heated, cleaned, and polished before being fed into high-speed presses that stamped the famous image of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial reverse on the back. The entire process was a remarkable blend of engineering precision and artistic design, producing coins that were small yet intricately detailed, capable of surviving decades of circulation. The economic environment of 1972 also adds another layer of meaning to the 1972 D penny. During this time, the United States was dealing with inflation and changes in the global monetary system following the end of the gold standard under President Richard Nixon. Everyday Americans relied heavily on small-denomination coins like the penny for basic transactions, from buying a newspaper to paying sales tax on small purchases. Because of this constant demand, billions of pennies had to be produced each year. The 1972 D. Lincoln Memorial Cent therefore became part of the daily economic rhythm of the nation, circulating through stores, vending machines, and bank rolls while quietly supporting the flow of commerce across the country. Collectors are also intrigued by the subtle varieties and die characteristics that sometimes appear on these coins. Even though the Denver Mint did not produce the famous double die variety associated with the 1972 Philadelphia Cent, minor minting quirks can still appear on Denver minted coins. These include small die cracks, repunched mint marks, or slightly shifted designs caused by the intense pressure used during striking. Enthusiasts often examine coins with magnifying tools in hopes of spotting a rare variation that might increase the coin's desirability. In this way, the 1972 D. Lincoln Memorial Cent continues to inspire careful study among hobbyists who enjoy the detective work of numismatics. Next up in the 1978 Lincoln Memorial Cent begins with the long-standing American tradition of honoring national heroes on circulating coinage. First introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, the Lincoln Cent quickly became one of the most recognizable coins in the United States. By 1978, the Lincoln Memorial design had already been in circulation for nearly 2 decades, representing a period in American numismatic history when coins were transitioning through economic change, metal shortages, and growing collector interest. Although the 1978 penny may appear ordinary at first glance, it carries a fascinating story about American manufacturing, national symbolism, and the everyday currency that passed through millions of hands during the late 20th century. The obverse of the 1978 penny features the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials VB famously appeared on the earliest Lincoln cents and later returned in smaller form. Lincoln's right-facing profile symbolizes leadership, humility, and the democratic ideals he defended during his presidency. Surrounding the portrait are the words "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1978. These inscriptions reflect the patriotic spirit embedded within American coinage. Even though billions of Lincoln cents were minted throughout the decades, each coin still carries the powerful image of a leader who preserved the Union during the American Civil War, making the design deeply meaningful to both historians and collectors. Turning the coin over reveals the famous Lincoln Memorial reverse design created by Frank Gasparo, which was introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The detailed engraving of the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly at the center, symbolizing the lasting legacy of the president it honors. Remarkably, if you look closely at well-preserved examples, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln seated within the memorial structure, making this one of the rare instances in world coinage where the same historical figure appears on both sides of a coin. This artistic detail adds an extra layer of fascination for collectors studying the coin under magnification. In 1978, the penny was primarily produced by the United States Mint, with most coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Philadelphia coins typically carried no mint mark during this period, while Denver coins featured a small D beneath the date. The production numbers were enormous because the penny was still essential for everyday commerce. Billions of coins were minted to meet the needs of vending machines, retail transactions, and banking circulation. Despite their large mintage, subtle differences in strike quality, luster, and minting errors have created small pockets of rarity within the 1978 series. The metal composition of the 1978 Lincoln cent is another important aspect of its history. At the time, the coin was composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, giving it the classic reddish color associated with older American pennies. This copper-rich composition was standard for decades before rising metal prices forced a change in 1982 to a copper-plated zinc core. As a result, many collectors appreciate the 1978 penny as part of the final era of traditional bronze U.S. cents. Holding one today is like holding a small piece of industrial history from a time when copper still dominated the production of everyday coins. Even though the 1978 penny was produced in very high quantities, collectors constantly search for special varieties and mint errors. These can include off-center strikes, doubled dies, and coins with unusual planchet flaws. Such minting anomalies can transform an otherwise common coin into a fascinating collectible. Numismatists carefully inspect coins under magnification, looking for subtle doubling in the lettering or date, or unusual shifts in the design that occurred during the striking process. When discovered and authenticated, these rare variations can dramatically increase the coin's desirability among collectors. Condition also plays a major role in determining the value of a 1978 Lincoln cent. Most coins found in circulation today show wear, scratches, and discoloration after decades of use. However, coins preserved in uncirculated condition with their original mint luster can be far more appealing to collectors. Professional grading services evaluate these coins using a scale from poor to mint state, with higher-grade examples commanding stronger prices. A bright red mint state, 1978 penny, especially one with flawless surfaces, may attract attention in auctions and collector markets. Beyond its collector value, the 1978 Lincoln penny serves as a small historical artifact representing everyday life in late 1970s America. During this time, the United States experienced economic challenges such as inflation and rising metal costs, yet the humble penny continued circulating through grocery stores, vending machines, and pocket change across the nation. Millions of people handled these coins daily without realizing that each one carried a detailed monument, a presidential portrait, and a piece of national history stamped into metal. Today, the 1978 Lincoln Memorial Cent remains a favorite entry point for beginner coin collectors while still offering intriguing possibilities for experienced numismatists. Its connection to Abraham Lincoln, its classic copper composition, and its place in the long-running Lincoln cent series make it a coin that bridges everyday currency with historical storytelling. Whether discovered in an old coin jar, inherited collection, or carefully preserved mint set, the 1978 penny reminds us that even the smallest denomination in American coinage can hold a surprisingly rich and fascinating history. The 1978 Lincoln Memorial Cent also represents an important moment in the continuing evolution of American coin collecting. During the late 1970s, coin collecting, also known as numismatics, was becoming increasingly popular across the United States. Coin folders, collector albums, and price guides were widely available, encouraging many families and young collectors to search their pocket change for interesting dates and mint marks. The 1978 penny frequently appeared in these collections because it was easy to obtain, yet still connected to a long historical series that began decades earlier. For collectors building a complete Lincoln cent set, adding a well-preserved 1978 coin helped represent the modern era of the series while still maintaining the classic bronze composition that collectors admired. Another fascinating aspect of the 1978 penny lies in the subtle differences between coins produced at various minting facilities. Coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint were produced without a mint mark, while those created at the Denver Mint carried the small D mark beneath the date. Even though both versions share the same design, collectors often notice slight variations in strike sharpness, surface quality, and overall appearance depending on the mint where the coin was produced. These differences can make certain coins more attractive to collectors, especially when examining coins that have retained strong details in Lincoln's hair, the lettering on the obverse, and the fine architectural lines of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. The cultural symbolism of the coin is equally important. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln represents one of the most admired leaders in American history, a figure known for preserving the Union and guiding the nation through the devastating years of the American Civil War. By the time the 1978 penny was minted, Lincoln had already appeared on U.S. coinage for nearly 70 years, making his portrait one of the longest-running designs in American monetary history. This consistency created a sense of continuity, reminding citizens that the principles Lincoln defended, unity, equality, and democracy, remained central to the nation's identity long after his presidency. From a market perspective, most circulated 1978 pennies are still considered common coins, typically worth only a small amount above their face value. However, uncirculated examples with bright copper-red surfaces can be more desirable in the collector market. Professional grading companies evaluate these coins carefully, assigning grades that determine their value in auctions and private sales. In some cases, exceptionally preserved specimens stored in mint sets or protective holders may sell for significantly higher prices than ordinary circulated pieces. For collectors, finding a near-perfect example with strong luster and minimal marks can feel like discovering a small treasure hidden among everyday coins.